Shalom, shalom. Welcome to the room. Continue to ping and share the room also. That'd be great. We're going to get started here in a bit. Shalom. Welcome to the room. We're going to get started here in about 2 minutes. Continue to ping. We're just letting some people um, come into the room. So the water. Con. We can go ahead and get started. More people, the replays are on. So if people want to listen in later, they can. So first, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, by Shem Yahweh Shai. Shout out to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. Greetings and blessings. This is episode 23 of our series we've been doing on Thy Kingdom Come of Jacob's Trouble. So, for the past year, we've been having various lessons dealing with Jacob's Trouble, starting with what is it? How do we prepare for Jacob's trouble? Some of the things to consider, different scenarios in Jacob's trouble, some things that may be the kickoff point. Um, so we talked about the power grid, cyber attacks, things like that, hyperinflation. We also talked about for the preparedness, Salakia. We discussed various ways of food preparation, food storage, food rotation, water storage, um, what else? Self defense, first aid, a lot of things like that. And then, we transitioned a little bit to discuss. We did another series called Analyzing Jacob's Trouble, where we took various movies and TV shows and short films, and we watched it, and then a week later we discussed it and extrapolated relevant lessons for us to have navigate during Jacob's trouble. So that was in the natural, but within the spirit, we also covered the right mindset to have, and we also covered the wrong mindset to have, things that will get us not protected or guarded during that time. So, I haven't done these in a while. I think the most recent lesson we did was about the religious exemptions regarding COVID, because that was a really big deal that they were trying to force all of us to get exempted. So, we did a lesson on legal process and understanding what the employers legally to accept or deny the exemptions, and how to navigate through that. Shalom, Mike. So that was the most recent one, and I haven't done that many in a while. I, as of now, I'll only do them as the Most High, as I get directed to. So there's as we can see, covering the news, there's a lot of biblical prophecy that's going to, makes it seem like we're, Jacob's trouble's knocking at our door, and things are about to pop off fairly soon. Soon, don't put a timeline on that, but I'm just saying we don't we don't have much time left. Just looking at everything that's going around. So with that, I'm going to do some refresher lessons and things like that. But tonight, I want you to welcome you to episode 23 of Jacob's Trouble. It's titled "Can We Steal During That Time?" Those are in air quotes. Mike, you there?
Yeah, but I'm at work.
Okay, cool. No problem. If it's can, or if one of the brothers can, King Ben has his Thy Kingdom Come YouTube channel. Everything I talked about, there's a playlist called Jacob's Trouble. If you could pull that up, and just send me the link or post the link, that'll be great, so that people can get access to those past lessons, because we recorded all those lessons. And King Ben on Thy Kingdom Come, he has a YouTube channel. He created a YouTube channel, and there's a playlist called Jacob's Trouble, and within that there is a playlist that has all the lessons we've done. So I think maybe one is missing that I got to redo. If it is, no problem. It would be a good refresher anyway. But just something for the people to see and can click on while I go through the lesson. The water. So let's get started. Okay, so uh, some people, I was having this, I guess, not really discussion, but just, I guess thoughts of what people think about stealing, looting, scavenging. And then, most one important question was, well, can we steal, air quotes, during Jacob's trouble? So what we're going to do, we're going to go through the Bible, and, also the laws of the land. And the answer will be fairly clear whether or not we can, air quotes, steal during Jacob's trouble. So let's go ahead and get started. This is Deuteronomy chapter 22. We're going to start at verse 1. This is the law. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his ass go astray, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt any case bring them again to thy brothers. So first we see, if your brother's cattle goes astray, you cannot hide yourself from them, meaning you cannot shun away from the responsibility. Okay, you have an obligation to bring it back to your brother. Okay, and if thy brother be not nigh unto thee, or if thou know him not, then thou shalt bring it unto thine house, and it shall be with thee until thy brother seek after it, and thou shalt restore it unto him again. In like manner thou shalt do with his ass, so thou shalt do with his raiment. And with all lost thing of thy brother, which he has lost, and thou hast found, shalt thou do likewise. Thou mayest not hide thyself. Okay. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his ass fall down by the way, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt surely help him to lift them up again. So when it says hide thyself from them, it's like you're kind of shying away, or you're trying to like pretend you don't see it, so you don't have the responsibility to help. Okay. So this law is telling us we have a duty to return our brother slash sister's lost property. If they are not close to you, or you don't know them, then you are to safeguard it until they come looking for it. So the question is, one of the questions is, what if? So the question is, what if the brother never comes looking for his property? Okay. So this would go into the second part of the law, if thy brother is not nigh unto you. Because if he is close, then you will simply go to his house and return it. Okay. Well, first, giving the spirit of the law, you have a duty to reasonably inquire as to who lost their property. Okay. If you see someone walking by the way, you can ask them, hey, you know anyone who lost a goat or an ox or this raiment or whatever? This is why most farmers and ranchers will brand their livestock with a branding iron or ear tags. They don't really use the branding iron today. They use the tags. Okay. So you would know, okay, hey, this branding has, such and such mark, or the house of Mike. Okay, let me take it back to him. Okay. At the same time, the person who lost the property, once they realize something is lost, they have a duty to reasonably search for their property, either look for it or ask around. Okay. Reasonably. Now, reasonably or reasonable, what is reasonable? It's something that a reasonable person or a normal person in that circumstance would consider reasonable. So, no one would expect you to go throughout the entire country of Israel asking every single person if they lost such and such. That's not reasonable. But you have to make a reasonable effort. Okay, that's the spirit of the law. So let's back this up with what I said about that being of the spirit of the law to reasonably inquire. This is Matthew chapter 5, verse 38. Ye have heard it has been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, for whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn it to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that ask, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not away. So, the part about, getting sued or someone asking you to go with them on an errand and you go to extra step, that's the spirit of the law. So, um, you know, let's go back to the question. Now, the question is, what are you to do if the brother never comes to look for his property? Never comes. Like that cow has been with you for 6 months up into a couple of years. Okay. Then at this point, the property becomes abandoned. Okay. If property becomes abandoned, then you are free to keep it. Let's get some examples of abandonment. Okay. This is important. Okay. This is Matthew chapter 13, verse 44. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a treasure hidden in a field, the which when a man hath found it, he hideth, and for joy, therefore go and selleth all he hath and bury and buyeth that field. Now, this is a parable where we can extract, this is a parable, but the principle of we can extract the law of abandonment. The owner of the field is not the owner of the treasure. If he was, then he would not be selling the land. Okay. Shalom, King Ben. Welcome.
Hey, shalom, shalom.
Shalom. Am I coming in clear?
Khan.
Okay. Real quick, I asked if you're available, can you put the playlist of Jacob's Trouble from that Kingdom Comes YouTube at the top so people can look at the past lessons
Khan.
whenever you get a chance? Thanks. Okay. So let me repeat that again. So now this parable, we can extract the law of abandonment. The owner of the field is not the owner of the treasure. If he was, he would not be selling that land. Okay. Let's get a more recent example of this in history. So I'm going to play a clip and we're going to let you listen to it. This actually happened. This is a real case of abandonment. So we got to follow the laws of the land. Yeah, let's see what happens when you take advantage of Esau's laws of the land. Let's listen. Flower Mound's Waterford Drive is lined with well-manicured $300,000 homes. So when a new neighbor moved in without the usual sale, mortgage-paying homeowners had a few questions. What paperwork is it and how is it legally binding if he doesn't legally own the house? He just squats there.
Lee Lowry and her husband told me the house down the street was in foreclosure for more than a year. The owner walked away, then the mortgage company went out of business. Apparently, that opened the door for someone to take advantage of the situation. Kenneth Robinson told us he's no squatter. He says he moved in on June 17th after months of research about a Texas law called adverse possession.
This is not a normal process, but it's not a process that's not known. It's just not known to everybody.
Robinson says this piece of paper gives him rights to the house. It's an online form he printed out and filed at the Denton County Courthouse for $16. It says the house was abandoned and he's claiming ownership.
I went through, looked at it, and added some things here, you know what I mean, for my own protection.
The house is virtually empty, just a few pieces of furniture, no running water or electricity. But Robinson says just by setting up camp in the living room, Texas law gives him exclusive negotiating rights with the original owner. If the owner wants him out, he would have to pay off his massive mortgage debt, and the bank would have to file a complicated lawsuit. Robinson believes neither is likely, so if he stays in the house, after 3 years, he can ask the court for the title. That's your goal eventually, is to have title of this home, to be the owner of this home.
Absolutely.
And
On a record, you know what I mean? At this point, since I possess it, I am the owner of the home.
Robinson posted no trespassing signs after neighbors asked police to arrest him for breaking in. But Flower Mound officers say they can't remove him from the property because home ownership is a civil matter, not criminal. Lowry and her neighbors continue to look for legal ways to get him out.
Or if he wants the house, buy the house like everyone else had to. Get the money, buy the house.
Robinson says he's not buying anything. As far as he's concerned, the $330,000 home is already his, and he has the paperwork to prove it. Casey Norton, Channel 8 News.
Okay, so that brother is a Jake who took advantage of Texas law, which, I mean, this law's been around since, I mean, Lord knows when. In principle, okay. So this house was worth $300,000. The original owner couldn't keep it with the payments, so he abandoned the house. The mortgage company, they still own the house, or they owned the house, past tense. But the mortgage company went out of business. So, no one cares about this house. So he went and filed some paperwork, which, is called adverse possession. And there's some, it's 3 years now, but when, the law originally started, back in the 1700s or whatever, it was 20 years. So, Texas shortened that to say 3 years. 3 years of this of abandoned property, and a person adverse possesses it, then it's theirs. So, this was in 2011. I'm sure he's got the title to this. And once you get the title, then, you can call electric company and get all that stuff taken care of. So, but here we go. So that is an example of abandoned property. The mortgage company, the owner, is no longer in business. They are no longer in the business of buying and selling homes or servicing mortgages. If you try to call them and inquire about a loan for a home, you wouldn't get any assistance. So do you see where I'm going with this? Abandoned property is defined as personal property left by the owner who intentionally relinquishes all rights to his control. Real estate, as a legal definition, you really can't abandon. That's just the word we use, but the legal term would be adverse possession, okay, which the clip shows you how that works. So when Jacob's trouble or shit hits the fan, with what other nations want to call it, when that really kicks off, the legal terms of theft, abandonment, adverse possession, looting, and scavenging will all come into play. Side note, when it's our people, it's called looting. But when white people do it, it's called scavenging and surviving. Many of us learned that during various natural disasters and when the news reports the situation. So let's get to it. So when bombs start going off in major cities and you hear reports of invasion, it is reasonable to believe that Walmart has abandoned their property. If you want to absolutely be sure they abandon it, feel free to call their customer service number and ask them if you can take some items for free, giving the situation. Okay. Highly doubt someone will be on the other line um, picking up that call. Um, it- Highly doubtful. Okay. Now, with that being said, our people, those who've been in the truth for some time, who have, we've been already preparing. Those who've been in these Jacob's Trouble classes should have already be ahead of the crowd who is going to get caught off guard when this really goes down. So, your food storage will be when or if you are at home when this goes down. Now, at some point, if we're still in these places, if we're still in our cities or homes or whatever, during Jacob's Trouble, some of us will have to leave our homes at some point. Just being realistic, it could be a number of reasons. I mean, fire's on its way. Um, you know, your neighborhood is getting bombed. I mean, it could be a million reasons why, and that's not a reason to panic. It's just being realistic. You might have to leave your home at some point. Okay. Now, many places of business will be abandoned, and the items on the shelves will go away very quickly. This entails items of necessity and stupid stuff that no one needs during this time. So, if you are going to take abandoned property, make sure it's something that you actually need and that's going to get you through the next couple of days, weeks, or months. Not laptops, laptops, PlayStations, 70-inch screen TV. That is, that's just foolishness. And unfortunately, that still is going to happen. People are going to loot out of their minds, and the good thing about that is, well, for the wise is, if you're in a situation, you could quickly grab some items. Okay, I mean the items of value. Okay, so with that being said, let's discuss the most likely places that will be targets for scavengers, looters, survivors, whatever you want to call it at this point, because um, the businesses are going to be being realistic. The businesses will abandon their property. They will. I mean, there is no customer service number going to be working. You could try calling Walmart right now and say, "Hey, I'm at the store at this location. I need some extra food. Can I, take some off the shelf?" Or you can ask a manager at the store. He's going to tell you no. Well, he might. I don't know. You could try it. He may have some close to expiring food he might want to get rid of. So you could try it. But if he says no, then no, you can't. Say I'm scavenging. However, when the bombs start dropping, go to that Walmart and try to find that manager and ask him again, and or call the customer service number and ask them, can you take this bread and water for your family because your city's under it. They're not going to be answering. Um, and assuming your phone works, we haven't gotten that far, but so at that point, the property is abandoned. It is no longer stealing because the owner has intentionally relinquished all rights to that property. They're not going to be sitting there with cashiers trying to check everyone out when they hear their city is under attack. Okay. Um, Now, again, with that being said, there's some places we have to discuss, and some situations going into this. Okay. So I hope that's clear. Um, So, with all that being said, let's discuss the places that will be targets for scavengers, looters, survivors, whatever. Number one is your stores, retail stores, gas stations. If you have to get some items, again, I'm saying if. So, for example, most of y'all who've been in the truth or aware of in time preparation should be prepared to some extent. But if you just happen to be at the grocery store when everyone around you is getting the phone alerts that seek shelter immediately. If you have to get something, you want to stay away from, get the items that are going to get, grab some extra stuff, get home immediately. Okay. I assure you the tellers won't be there by the time you get to the line. Now, with that being said, you want to stay away from small mom and pop shops, the bodegas, the convenience stores with the Ishmaelites who been in your neighborhood for generations, Moab, Ammon. Stay away from those. The owners of those properties, that it's not a major corporation, so those are again mom and pops. The owners will try to defend their property as long as they can, even though they have insurance, or at least they should have insurance. Now, those family businesses will be defended harder than a major chain. Okay. Now, even then, at some point, they're going to say, "Hey, this is not worth defending. We're going to take what we can, and we're leaving, and we're going home, take care of our family." So, typically, you saw that during, riots. The mom and pop shops go to their business with their shotgun to make sure looters don't get it, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. However, in this situation, when bombs are dropping, it would be very foolish of them to try to, very foolish of them to try to defend that store given that gravity of the situation. But some will try. Okay, especially if you're a city more removed from the, the I guess the what is that point called? The I guess the point of action. I can't think of the word right now, Slovakia. From the point of action, the farther you remove from that, the more likely those mom and pop shops will be defending. Okay. So stay away from those. I mean, gas stations are kind of, you got to weigh the situation. But again, you should be prepared, so you don't have to be in this chaos when it happens. Okay. Number two would be homes. People's homes will get invaded for a lack of bread. Slovakia. Second Ezra chapter 15, verse 17. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. For because their pride, the city shall be troubled. The houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Now, this is just my estimate. This is just Leo talking. On this, going to house, I believe it will commence after a few days to a few weeks. Okay. Once the unprepared go through their food, supplies, and medicine, and they realize nothing is coming back to normal, the government has lost control. I would say lost. The government has no control, and this is their new reality. When those thoughts enter into the mind of those citizens and is reinforced with empty cabinets, the growling stomachs will turn men into growling beasts. And they will have no pity on their neighbor who may be a senior citizen who has just enough food to last a few days. That soccer mom who neither stocked up nor did she force the household to ration the food they did have will come knocking on that senior citizen's door asking nicely. And if met with any resistance or rejection, she's going to start asking again with bullets. Okay. That is reality. And that's biblical. We just read the scripture. So number three, warehouses, places that are warehouses / distribution centers. Okay. Places that are owned by Walmart, Amazon, Target will be prime targets, pun intended, for people looking for additional supplies. My prediction is that these places will not be immediately hit by the majority, as the majority will go for the low-hanging fruit, convenience stores, gas stations, things like that. If someone is going to go straight to those places at the beginning, it's probably going to be employees who work there, who know the layout and know what items are stocked where. You might have a manager who lives close by, but if the manager lives 15, 20 miles away or 30 miles away, he's not going to go there. It'll be made more for the people who are in the vicinity and know the layout of the land. So those are going to be targets. Some of the, but with that, let's kind of go into some more places to scavenge. That will be, targets. Number one, automotive shops. Your AutoZones, your O'Reillys. They have the parts that you might need for your car, and they got snacks and drinks in there, things like that. So, um, you know, cars. They're going to be targets. The glove box. People are going to be looking for whatever they can. So, if you, depending on where you live or, your situation, if you have a garage, definitely take advantage of it. If it's you got too much junk in there, you can't put your car in there. Get rid of some of that junk. Having your car in the garage will be, a good idea. Churches. Now again, I gotta. Is it right to scavenge a church? Now again, if it's abandoned, like there's no one there that's been signs, no one has been there, and it's reasonable to believe a reasonable person who's in Jacob's trouble, shit hits the fan, bombs are going off. You see Russian troops, across the street, rounding up Edomites. Is it reasonable to believe that that church is not coming back? If we saw anything from COVID, that the churches were shut down, but people had to come and give their tithes under the door, I can assure you that pastor's not going to that church to collect no tithes. So, the reason I say churches will be a target, a church that's, giving to the poor and feeding the poor, they may have some things in their pantries, or they may have a pantry, or if there's like it's a church with a, school attached, like a private school, then, their cafeteria will have some of those, I think they're number 10 cans, the really big cans that you see with the green beans and all that stuff. Those number 10 cans are designed to have a longer shelf life than the smaller cans. So, when I go into schools and stuff like that, that would be the cafeteria will be a target. Um, so these are just places for you to think about, when you have to leave your house at some point. Okay. Now with the schools, I personally would stay away from the really big high schools. I would stay away from those. Is it possible? Again, you have to, look at the situation and make this as a situational assessment. I would stay away from the large high schools, only because some of those might be turned into FEMA camps. The stadiums, things like that. I would probably stay away from those. The government may try to set up some type of shelter. We see that in movies. It's or some type of DMZ zone. I would stay away from those. If you're walking by and you see that set up, I would keep walking, because those are death traps. The invading forces will have a field day when you have a bunch of people who are hungry, desperate, can't get out, and you have maybe 50 soldiers. That's going to be bad. And then that's in 2nd Ezra 16 that talks about that. Those that consent unto them will be hadden in derision and trodden underfoot. And, those FEMA camps will be the worst place to go. Absolutely worst place. One of my friends, he was in the when Saddam invaded Kuwait. He was in Kuwait when that happened, and his dad. I'll try to get him on here one day to give him, see if he can like share his story. He was like 5 or 6 when that happened. He said his dad told them, he told his family, no, we are not going to these camps. And everyone in the village told him he was crazy. No, you got to go. They got food and blah blah blah. He said absolutely not. And then they when they finally made it out, and some of his friends did make it to the U.S., a lot of them didn't. Everyone was telling him, we should listen to you. They had one toilet for 300 people. One toilet. They said some days the food didn't arrive because it got robbed by other villagers. The Iraqi forces got the food trucks. So if it did arrive, it was old and moldy. Um, it was a bad. He said, like my friend, he said no, absolutely no way. Like I will literally execute my family before we go to a FEMA camp. It's not happening. Just based off his experience of dealing with his family who had the foresight to avoid those places. And then we saw it in the U.S. with Hurricane Katrina. Like it's those are the worst places to go. So churches, use your assessment to see if you should, scavenge those places, but they're not bad places. The mega churches, stay away from. Those are just as bad as your high school stadiums or your larger high schools, but the mid-sized churches that it might not be a bad idea. Okay. Um, Fire stations. Okay. You know, um, the fire engine will have hundreds of gallons of water. You know, of course, it needs to be filtered, but they also have food and supplies as well because firefighters sleep there to stay there. Sometimes they do clothing and food drives and things like that. Okay. Um, Government buildings. Those are not. Now, I will say government. I'm not talking federal. You know, maybe your local courthouses or something like that. You know, anything federal or state, or like the state capitol, things like that. Hell no, do not go to those places. Again, it's a situational thing, but I wouldn't recommend it. Like that would not be on my list. That would not be on my top 100 list. But it's just an additional place to think about. Okay. Hospitals. There you go. I mean, yeah, they got cafeterias, food supplies, medical supplies. And here's the thing with hospitals. This kind of goes into um, some people have medical conditions where they need their medicine. This is the time. If you really got to research the medical condition you have, because some things can be healed naturally. Of course, the Most High, can heal you, but the remedy is a lot of natural remedies. There's depending on what you have, Um, but hospitals will be a major hotspot to get looted, especially the pharmacies. That'll be number one. No one's going to hospital looking for food at that point, in the beginning stages anyway. The first couple of days to a week, those the pharmacies are getting raided for the drugs. Okay, so if you are on a medicine for any type of mental illness or things like that, talk to your doctor first. Well, first consult the Most High, but start researching and seeing and talking to your doctor if there's any way to for natural solutions. Okay, it might be something as a vitamin deficiency, or it might be something as simple as the crowd you keep, or it might be something as simple as it could be, we don't know, but um, there are 55, so there's 350 million Americans approximately, and 55% of Americans are on some type of medication for mental problems. 55%. Um, so when they don't have access to that medicine, the withdrawals are going to be hell. Just keep that in mind. If you're struggling with that, we're definitely going to pray for you. But you want to look for solutions. If you can stock up, do it. But for other illnesses and things like that, if you can stock up, do it. If not, try to look for natural solutions to wean yourself off that medicine, because that a lot of people are going to have a very hard time weaning themselves off. But hospitals are a good place to look for additional supplies. Okay. Now we covered houses, but one thing I forgot to mention about houses, we brought this up in a previous class, but it's just a good reminder. If you go to an abandoned house, like this house has been abandoned, like the owners are not coming back, and one thing to do, if you're for water, the water heaters have about between 30 and 55 gallons of no, I think it's like 100 gallons of water stored in them. Okay, so you can use uh, water that's drinkable, but the thing is you got to filter it first. So when you turn on that spout at the bottom of the water filter, water heater, let the first few liters drain out, because most of that is the sediment of the water heater that's settle at the bottom. But anything outside of that, you can filter and you can drink it. Okay, it's drinkable. So just as you're walking or as we're trekking through these neighborhoods or through Jacob's Trouble, every house you see, just think potentially they have 100 gallons um, of water in their water heaters. Okay. Um, One thing you do want to buy is a water key. Just go to Amazon and type up water key. It's like it's like 4 prong. It has different like keyholes. So those commercial buildings that has like the little, it's a water spout, but it doesn't have the knob. It looks kind of weird or whatever, or like a square or a hex. Um, the water key that you can buy from Amazon for like $10, that'll be able to turn on those spouts. Okay, so that'd be a good thing to add to your bug out bag. Okay. Marinas, if you're coastal, the coasts are going to be very dangerous. But if you just happen to be there or you live there, abandoned, keyword abandoned. If someone's there, it's between you and the Most High and him. If you're going to share, or there's going to be some type of Mexican standoff, but we're assuming it's abandoned. Um, they will usually have some emergency supplies, food, fishing equipment. Some of them have gun storage. So now with that, we also can go to the office buildings, your commercial buildings, the same thing. The vending machines, they'll have vending machines. The break rooms are usually fully stocked. So these are just additional options to think. So some people, think, oh my gosh, I ran out of my food or I don't have food. What am I going to do? For one, the Most High is going to provide. But two, you just want to have these things in your head as you're walking or you're driving, and you have to get some supplies and food. These are places that typically have them that we don't think about every day. Okay, pawn shops. Psh, I can assure you, guns and ammo will be gone. But there might be something there you could use: walkie-talkies, ham radio, things like that. But you should already have walkie-talkies, and. But again, if you don't, or you lose them, or you're not home, these are places to think of. Now, this is weird. I'm not doing this, but I've seen some Edomite channels talk about this. They say pet stores. Okay, well, of course, if you have a pet, yeah, you should, make sure they're taken care of if you're able to. Okay, but this is a thing. I have not tried this, nor will I'm not tempted to. But the word on the street is you can eat pet food. Okay, and they also recommend that they don't recommend it unless you're really desperate. But there's no FDA regulations on pet food that can make you sick if you eat too much. Blah blah blah. I've seen those videos. I'm not doing it, but I just thought it'd be worth mentioning. Now, restaurants. A lot of that food in the restaurants will go bad because the power is going to go off. You can expect the power to go off. So, but you could check. They might have some prepackaged stuff that doesn't need refrigeration. Okay. And lastly, it would be self-storage facilities. We covered that on Analyzing Jacob's Trouble when we covered one of the Walking Dead mini short films. The manager of the storage facility kind of took control of the storage facility and made sure, unless you were a woman, he was very nefarious with the way he managed a storage facility. But I guess the takeaway would be storage facilities have a lot of valuable stuff that you can use. Some people who are in the emergency preparedness, they will use a storage facility to store additional supplies there, and some of the longer food storage things. So if you were thinking about having a self storage or a storage facility, that's not a bad idea. It's just something to consider. The monthly cost is one. Two, if and when the power goes out, you got to make sure you have a plan to get to your storage facility while recognizing there will be other people trying to get to their storage facilities. Okay. And recognizing that the manager may turn it into a small fortress and say, this is all my shit now. Just like what we saw in the Analyzing Jacob's Trouble regarding the Walking Dead short film. So if you, the closer to your house, the better, of course. But, if you're going to do that, have a plan outlined out on how you're going to get to it and things like that. So these are just some places to scavenge, but no, it is not stealing at this point. because the property has been abandoned. It is reasonably to expect the owner of um, the Walton family of Walmart are not going to be calling in their accountants and security to making sure that there's no theft going on at that point. They will be in their super duper underground bunkers. They're not going to give two craps about the items on the store. So even when I mentioned manager, the manager, that's not his. He's just a manager of the property, so it's not his. But the owners, the shareholders there are not going to care one bit, nor is it reasonable to expect them to care when you see when reports start going off of different cities being under attack. It's that no one's going to expect the owners to care. So at this point, it would be abandonment. The owner is relinquishing all intention. Let me read that legal definition again. Um, Abandoned property is defined as personal property left by an owner who intentionally relinquishes all rights to its control. So, the can of beans on the on at a Walmart, the Walton family, they're not going to care. It's reasonably the intention does not have to be announced. I hereby relinquish. No, the circumstances surrounding the property would a reasonable person think that the owner has relinquished its rights to this property. Okay, in that situation, yes. But as again I said, stay away from the mom and pop shops. They're not relinquishing anything, even if it's to their detriment. But still, I would stay away from those. You want to avoid confrontation at all cost. Sometimes the confrontation is going to come to you, and you're going to have to handle it. And by the Spirit and power of the Most High, you will. So there's no need to worry at all. But this is just some things to consider because we were having this discussion about stealing, and then I got some family members that'll say, "Well, you can't take that that can of beans. That's stealing." This is not stealing. Like we're in Jacob's trouble. Like the owner is not looking for this can of beans. He's not checking inventory. So I wanted to cover this by the Spirit of the Most High. Now with this, I want to transition, but before I do, if there's any questions specifically on this topic, I don't want anyone comes up and start asking, "Are we the real Jews?" That is not what this is about. So we're talking specifically on scavenging, things like that, ideas, tips, questions you have. Anyone who has a question about this specific topic, raise your hand, and we'll bring you up. Okay, so we have a brother. Go ahead and invite you up. So we got a couple of speakers. Shalom, Darius. Welcome to the stage. Welcome to the room. You have any
Shalom.
questions? Shalom, King. You have any questions, concerns, comments about the topic?
Yeah, I want to comment on it. I feel like this time of trouble that is definitely upon us, and is going to get worse as we see this new world order progressing into a one world government, which will align with Bible prophecy, that no man can buy or sell in the entire world, or it has to be a one world type of institution for that to happen. So when we talk about stealing versus scavenging, I think there's a definite difference. I think you can't go into a man's house and take from him um, without first subduing him, as the Messiah spoke about. You have to bind the strong man if you want to take anything from the house. And that type of taking by force, I don't think God is going to put us in a position to. But I do think that when it comes to gathering resources, they will be presented to us. If we look at the example of Elijah in the wilderness, and how the raven brought him food. God will provide as we are following Him, but we have a reality of, if we're not connected with God in such a way that we understand God's lead and what He's asking us to do, and being in a position for God to help us out, we will then get in our own mind and think it's okay to steal, and I think that will put us in a bad position.
Khan. Yeah, I understand. I understand. Like, the Most High definitely will provide for His elect during this time, and He will make it known to for us His provision. But I wanted to cover this, the difference between stealing and scavenging and things like that, and abandoned property. Because if it's abandoned at that point, it's no longer stealing. The owner does not want it. The owner's not looking to retain his rights of that property. So we see that we've had examples of that for people. Some people are overly, when I say overly righteous, but overly cautious in terms of violating the law. They don't want to steal, but this store is abandoned and there's a bottle of water on the floor. I don't want to steal. That's not stealing. It's abandoned. So I want to make sure that our people are clear on that. But I agree with everything you said. The um,
I had a question
uh,
there.
Sean,
Um,
go ahead. Go ahead. You
the,
got it.
the Bible speaks about us fleeing where we're at, especially if we're in the city, fleeing that time and getting to the wilderness. There won't be property in the wilderness. Shouldn't we be arming ourselves with knowledge and understanding how to operate in the wilderness without having to access, property, for example?
Um, Yeah, that's a good question. So let me bring out this scripture and then we can discuss it. This so to answer your first question, should we be arming ourselves with knowledge? Absolutely. We've covered various techniques to scavenge. I mean, like when you're like in the wilderness, things like that, fire making, water filtration, wood gathering. How to the right type of wood that you should be gathering to make a fire. Chopping down a freshly lively tree, you're not going to start a fire with that. You'd be looking for dead branches and twigs and things like that because they're dried out. So we've covered that. Those skills are definitely needed, and yes, you should do that. But with that being said, some people live in major cities. That is, they call it urban survival. So that, in a sense, is the wilderness. It's a concrete jungle. That's what they call it. So know as you're going through, someone who's in a major city, leaving the city because things are going, to hell, and the Most High is making a way. As you're trekking through that, it's good to know the same skills that you would use in the forest for someone who's more, um, um, what's the opposite of urban? Not suburban, but more rural. Um, the same set of skills would benefit that person. Learn knowing commercial buildings have this, or this abandoned house, this water heater has about 100 gallons of water that I can use. So those are skills that could benefit the person who live in major cities, fleeing the major city on their way out. So we've covered that, but yeah, I agree 100%. Now with that, let me bring up this precept. This is Second Ezra chapter 16 and verse 40. O my people, hear my word and make you ready to thy battle, and in those evils even be as pilgrims upon the earth. So this goes to exactly what you're saying. Like pilgrims, they move from place to place. So I want people, I know some people, they have in their houses and apartments, they have their fortress set up. At some point you're going to have to leave unless the Most High delivers, he's swoops you up and transport you to a different place. But just being realistic about a warlike urban situation, because the first places that are going to get attacked are major cities. I'm not saying that to scare you. It's just being realistic at looking at military targets. And their first of the major cities will be military bases. So if you live close to a military base, you want to pray for the Most High for guidance, whether you should move or whether you should stay. Either way, the Most High is going to protect you. But military targets Air Force bases, military bases will be the first places hit. Now, with that being said, we have to be as pilgrims on the earth. Now, before that, it says, make you ready to thy battle. Battle is, we know that's combat. Things will get physical at some point. If you read Ezra 15 and 16, It describes that. So let's go into the mindset you should have as you get ready to be a pilgrim. Verse 41, he that sells, let him be as one that flees away. He that buys is one that he will lose. So if you're an owner of these stores, you need to have the mindset now that you're selling this as one day you're going to be leaving this property behind and fleeing. Okay. As one who buys, as one that he will lose. Okay. You're not going to be able to enjoy it. Okay. It's, someday you bought this, whatever you're buying, or whatever major purchase you have your eyes on and you buy it. You need to have the mindset that one day I'm going to leave this expensive item, whether it was, a Mercedes truck or whatever, this new house, I'm going to leave it behind. He that occupies merchandise as he that have no profit by it. He that builds as he that will not dwell. He that sows as he shall not reap. Also he that plants the vineyard, so shall he not gather the grapes. They that marry as they shall get no children, and they that marry not as the widowers. So this is the mindset our people need to have in these last days. Like if you get married, you need to have the mindset it's possibly we're not going to have children given the times ahead. If you are a farmer, it's possible I'm not going to be able to enjoy this fruit because I'm going to have to leave here at some point, or, okay. So, and therefore, verse 45, and therefore they that labor in vain. For strangers shall reap their fruit, spoil their goods, overthrow their houses, and take their children captives. For in captivity and famine they shall get children. So this is telling you what strangers are going to do to your Walmart franchise. He's telling you. So as a, well, I've saved my money and I got me a franchise and I'm making, no, you need to have the mindset. If you're in this truth, it's going to get raided. It is. Now, robbery is different from stealing. Robbery is stealing using fear, threat, or intimidation or violence to take the property. Stealing is you're just taking it with the intent to not give it back or to deprive the owner. So yes, the skills, as you said earlier, as we get prepared to flee, um, and when we say flee, it's not running away in fear. No, like I gotta leave here. I'm a pilgrim who's prepared to battle. I gotta go somewhere else. So hopefully that answers your question. Con. Is there anyone else who wants to talk? Comment, questions,
Yeah,
concern? Go ahead.
appreciate you. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, King.
Yeah, I like the lesson. Brought out some good verses, and one thing I wanted to consider as well is because you described it as a time of essentially we're looking at a natural disaster type scenario too. But what is happening as well is it's also gonna be a war, right? And this is all maybe a different subject, but in a war, rules change. Like when you look at that verse in Second Esdras that you brought out, it said, "Prepare thyself for the battle." And even I believe it's in that chapter, reading more into it about the evils that'll befall. At the end, it says, "And you will know who are my chosen." So
Con.
the lines are going to be very clear as to who is and who isn't. You know, and when judgment starts at the house of the Lord, it's like, all right, it's very clear, like who's what, and at that point, it's basically a war, and that's just what I want people to consider as well. Is that of course you're gonna have to be led by the Holy Spirit to make the proper decisions, but you can look at the time of the Maccabees, what they had to do, right? And they had to fight, and sometimes they had to hit first. You know, how did they feed their army? Well, they didn't have all the resources they needed at Modin. The Greeks controlled a lot of the resources they needed, so they had to feed them some kind of way. They had to go take it sometimes. Other things like that. You could look at the siege of Jerusalem, right? Leo brought out the scriptures in that time and day. Christ was talking not only about the time to come, but also the siege of Jerusalem, what those people had to do. Could look at that history, see what we had to do to survive those days, you know? So we had to get up to some very uncomfortable stuff, right? So, yeah, just to put that in everybody's mind, in that, you know, the rules are going to be different in Jacob's trouble. And what matters most is surviving till the end, enduring till the end while keeping the commandments, right? So, Khan, keep that in mind.
Khan, great points, great points. Is there any other questions or comments before we transition to a different? It's still on the same lines, but I want to talk about self-defense for a little bit. This will kind of be, I want to grow on top of that. But there's anyone has any more questions, comments, or any other brothers want to comment on this topic? Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
good.
just a quick comment. I appreciate what you guys are doing and preparing the minds, especially of our young men and our able-bodied men, to get ready for this time, because that is the most important thing. It's now is the time to get ready, not when the crisis hit, not when the trouble hit, but right now is the time to get ready. So you don't even need to be in a position to have to think about having to break God's commandments in the process of trying to protect yourself or fleeing. God gives clear warning, so we have to listen to that.
Con. The water. If you have any more comments or questions you want to add, just raise your hand and we'll bring you back up. Um, Chibuze, if you have your hand raised, I'm trying to, Salaki, if I'm mispronounce your name, I'm trying to bring you up, but it's not letting me on. I don't know if one of the brothers want to try. And if not, you might have to leave the room and come back in so we can try again. But I'll bring you up. So yeah, hopefully that was clear. As the brothers mentioned, the rules of engagement going through society is going to change drastically. But I do wanted to cover that it's not stealing when the property becomes abandoned. Okay, there may be situations where you, as an Israelite, might have to take forcefully some property from an enemy. But again, the Most High said in verse 40, prepare to thy battle. So it's going to get uncomfortable. And if you subdue your enemy, it's not stealing at
The
that point.
winner gets the spoils, you know?
Exactly. It's definitely not stealing because he's relinquished all right to it because he's dead. So that's not. And trust me, your enemy will be thinking the same thing. They're not going to have these moral dilemmas or moral conversations when they're hungry. They're not. It's going to be to wait to see or to experience the heathen acting out on each other like this is going to be nothing like we've ever seen before. We thought COVID was bad when people were buying up all the food and toilet tissue, and some lady, I remember seeing some video. This lady literally cleared out all the toilet tissue and put it in her trunk, and people were recording and saying, "Ma'am, are you really going to take all the toilet tissue?" And she was like, "Yep." And she just kept loading in her truck, and they were like, "Oh, shame on you." During this time, it won't be no shame. They're going to take it. She's going to fight for it. She's going to lose her life. And that's what's going to happen because Americans have never, I mean, even 9/11, yeah, the U.S. was shook, but there wasn't looting and all this stuff going on. But when there's continuous bombing going on, and it's like, okay, this is not stopping. Then it's going to set in it's going to set in people's minds fairly quickly. So the rules are going to change. Okay. Any other brother has any other comment, or anyone the brother wants to come on stage to comment? Okay. So let's change gears just a bit. What we discuss goes perfectly into the next section I want to discuss. Self-defense. We've had some lessons on Jacob's trouble regarding self-defense. And if you go on YouTube, there's plenty of videos regarding self-defense. For Jacob's Trouble. Edomites call it shit hits the fan. There's plenty of videos to that you could learn from. But the purpose of this part I want to discuss is some people who have a discomfort for guns because when you say self-defense and you put it in the context of shit hits the fan, guns are immediately on everyone's mind. Okay. Um, here's my advice. Whether you're a man or a woman, if you're a man, you need to get over it. Um, you know, more so than a woman. If you do not like guns, like you hate them, you can't stand them. Yes, you've tried. Yes, you went to the gun range. Yes, you tried different types of guns. You just hate them. Then don't buy one. Don't. No matter no matter how much rebuke the brothers are going to give or whatever. Well, you need to get over. No, don't do it, because what's going to happen is you're going to buy it out of guilt and, well, yeah, I'll get it, and then you're not going to train with it. You're not going to practice with it. You're not going to know how to clean it. You're not going to know how to take it apart. You're not going to do any of that. You're going to buy it, put it in your drawer, and just think, if someone comes, then I'll take it out and start shooting. Don't do that. Okay, just don't buy it. However, you should get some form of personal protection that you can use and that you are comfortable with and that you are willing to practice. Okay, some form. Okay, so we're going to go through some of those options. That brothers. Hopefully this will be beneficial. So, the first thing, assuming you don't have a weapon, self-defense, whether it's boxing, whether it's Krav Maga, whatever, something that you can learn. If money's an issue, again, YouTube has tons of videos of everybody who's an expert showing you different um, forms of hand-to-hand combat or striking techniques for different types of situations, things like that. Just put women self-defense tips. Okay, those are you can use those videos. Those are practical. Some of the tips are practical. You might want to look at a different videos from different YouTubers, just to kind of get a well-rounded view of the technique they're trying to show you, whether it's palm striking, eye striking, things like that. So you want to get that done, because we're not always going to have a weapon with us. We're not always going to have time to draw it, but having those hand-to-hand techniques is a good idea. One second. Okay, Salakia. So some form of hand-to-hand type techniques doesn't have to be you don't have to be a black belt kung fu master. Just someone grabs you, how to break away from the wrist, how to strike the eyes, the throat, the nuts, whatever. So good idea. But when we talk about weapons, you don't like guns, you hate guns, you don't want to deal with guns. Okay. Number one would be pepper spray. Find a good type of pepper spray. They have some pepper spray guns. They have the spray, whatever you're comfortable with or whatever you want to try. Do that. One thing to note when you use your pepper spray is it's common sense, but again, in emerging situations, our adrenaline is pumping. We have the flight or fight mentality. Make sure you are aware of the wind direction if you're outside. So if the wind's blowing towards you, blowing in your face, that may not be the best item to use. Okay, so that's why some of the hand strikes might be good. Okay. Another thing will be the self-defense alarms or whistles, the keychain whistles. The keychain alarms. Go to YouTube, well, not YouTube, Amazon, and look up keychain alarms, and the selection are very good. I I've used some, not used it, but I've bought some for my wife and some of the family members, and it works. I mean, it works too well. One is like a little pin that you pull out, and once you pull it out, it is extremely loud. If you lose that pin, there is nothing you can do to turn off that alarm unless you break it. But that right there could be a good deterrent. Okay. You know, self-defense knives. Okay. Um, Knives are great for close combat. It's, but again, you have to not only get a knife. Oh, I got a knife. It's in my drawer. I'll use it if someone comes in the house. No, know how to actually use it, because there's certain ways you have to use it. No, practice pulling it out, drawing it, things like that, to where you're comfortable. You can do it almost automatically. Okay. Knives are very good options. Okay. Some people recommend batons. I mean, I don't. You have to, again, whatever I recommend, you have to practice with it. At least pulling it out at different, if you want to have it to your side or in your coat or in your purse or whatever, you have to practice that. That's something you do have to practice, no matter what you choose, whether it's a gun or a, um, rape whistle. You're going to have to practice. Okay. So, you can't, by you saying, I don't like guns, that does not absolve the responsibility of practicing. Okay. So batons, the ones that are retractable, could be a good option. I mean, it in its unused state, it's compact, so it may be a good option. Um, some of the tactical flashlights may be good. They have the little the spikes at the top. Those could be good because they, you can, as dual purpose. So you can use that to puncture windows, or you can use it to cause some damage. Okay. Tasers. I tasers or stun guns, they're not bad ideas. Again, just make sure you're comfortable with it. So the key is whatever self-defense item you choose that you are comfortable with, because again, you're gonna be one using this. I'm not gonna be there to say, well, why'd you buy that? No. You need to make sure that you're comfortable with it. So whatever you choose, whether it's a taser or a stun gun, make sure that you're comfortable with it. Okay. But these are just options. Okay. So with the self defense, um, that was fairly short. I know some people, they've gotten some daggers. I know some people who got crossbows. I know some people who are practicing with the bow and arrow. Those are all very good options. Again, I don't fear the man who has 1,000 guns. I fear the man who has one gun and fired it 1,000 times. Okay. So whatever it is, make sure you're prepared with it. I mean, you're comfortable for one. You like the way it feels. You like the way, what it does, and you practice. Okay. With the knives, some people, got karambits. Those are like the hook knives that you kind of see in the movies. Those aren't bad options. There's really no such thing as a bad option, especially if someone who's spent, hours training and practicing with it, at least getting comfortable, drawing it out of their, purse, pocket, whatever they put it. There's no such thing as a bad weapon. Okay. Because you're going to be the one using it, and it'll be better than having nothing. So, hopefully with that was helpful. It's that's a very short section. It's not too much you can go into it, because a lot of that is instruction based. So you have to, find someone who has a video on the type of item that you're using and watch their videos and train with their videos. So, you know, there's I'll post that in the Kingdom Come telechat. There's this video, this guy, he shows you how to use a knife, like some of the slashes and things like that. It's very good. It's very practical, and you can do it. I practice it. And it's, like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So things you don't think about if you never trained with it. Okay. So just using a knife to cut, fruits and vegetables is different than using a knife for combat. So completely different techniques. But with that, I'll yield. If there's anyone has any questions about that, feel free to raise your hand. Brothers, you want to comment, feel free. But I yield at this point. Any questions? All right. If there's no questions, then I guess we can close out. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully it was beneficial to give you some insight. But we're going to have a couple more fairly soon. Maybe the next one will be Tuesday. We're going to discuss nuclear preparedness, given the PSA that the city of New York posted on YouTube, thinking no one was going to notice, and then the mayor said, "Oh, it's better safe than sorry," but it's no reason for alarm. Like, why would you do that specific warning? Something. Hopefully, it was beneficial to give you some insight. But we're going to have a couple more fairly soon. Maybe the next one will be Tuesday. We're going to discuss nuclear preparedness, given the PSA that the city of New York posted on YouTube, thinking no one was going to notice, and then the mayor said, "Oh, it's better safe than sorry," but it's no reason for alarm. Like, why would you do that specific warning? Typically, you see those type of PSAs during hurricane season in coastal cities, or hurricane prone cities, or things like that. But a nuclear bomb, not the nuclear reactor in northern New York is unstable, and this is what we're doing to prepare. No, a nuclear attack specifically. That's what the PSA is. So we're going to cover that. For the in inevitability, if you're in an area, just so happen to be doing a nuclear fallout, some of the tips, things to do, precautions you should take, and things like that. So, but with that, we want to say thank you, Shalom. Thank you for coming out, and with that, we'll see you next time. Shalom.